Hey guys, it's Dash Zach back with another review, this time of the Inphic IN-06. It's a company I'd never heard of, and there are some interesting graphics on the mouse. It's a small GPX clone with a $33.95 that comes in under $50, which warrants the question, did I miss this when I did my top 5 GPX clone roundup? Let's find out. So real quick, before we get started, this mouse was sent out to me for review by Inphic, but all of my thoughts and opinions are my own. This is sort of a smaller GPX clone, sort of in the same vein as the M-Chose A5. It has a $33.95 sensor. It also has 8K Hertz capability. I did not get that dongle. I just got this little 1K dongle, which did also come with an extender over here, but you can plug this into your laptop, which is cool. So getting into the implementation of the mouse, this mouse has the Huano green shell white dots, which I've used before, and they're a very tactile switch, slightly more tactile than the Huano blue shell pink dots. These get really heavy at the top, but they're medium actuation in the middle all the way down to the bottom here, and I actually enjoy this. They're pretty tactile and very satisfying to click. There's a surprising lack of play at the bottom or anywhere where you push on these clicks. They're super well implemented, and again, for a mouse in this price range, kind of blown away by that. As far as pre and post travel go, there's a little bit of pre-travel, but it's exactly what you'd be looking for, and not a lot of post-travel. You can contact the sheller, but there's actually such little play, you can't even create grinding. So again, great marks there from Inphic on the clicks. The scroll wheel is tactile with very light steps, and there's a very satisfying medium actuation click that's very mechanical on the scroll wheel and very spammable. The side buttons are also shockingly good on this. They rebound really well and are super spammable, as you can see here. They don't really sink into the shell, and there's not a lot of pre-travel. The only thing is you can make these kind of play back and forth here, but beside that, they also protrude nicely, and they're very easy to access, not too high up. Side buttons are also a win. Looking at the bottom of the mouse, the sensor is a little bit further forward than center here, but I had no issues with that. I do prefer it further back, but this didn't really throw me off at all. The stock skates are surprisingly nice. They're thick, PTFE rounded. They remind me exactly of Pulsar stock skates, and I have really no complaints. I do like Pulsar stock skates, and these were very satisfying, not overly slow for me. And there is also included dongle storage, which I know a lot of people appreciate, as well as Bluetooth capability beyond the 2.4 gigahertz connector for 1K. Looking at the build integrity of this, there is absolutely zero side flex, absolutely zero flex when you press on the bottom, zero on the top. You can't make the front move in. This thing is actually built like a tank. Like, this is almost better than endgame gear, better than Vaxi. This is some of the best build quality I've seen on a mouse, which again, why is this happening on a $40 GPX clone from a company that I had never previously heard of? I don't know. Now, the reason for this might be that the mouse is advertised at 60 grams, so it's not light for a smaller GPX, but it's also not too much heavier than any of the other competitors in this range. So for that quality of build integrity, I give this a thumbs up. Even though I've been pretty positive about this mouse so far, I will say the main downside is the coating or lack thereof. There's really not much, if any, of like, there might be a very slight one. It feels almost like bare plastic. It's oddly similar to that of the GPX2, where you put this in hand and you're like, is there a coating? Is there, like, if they're calling it a coating, they really didn't do much. It's just pretty much bare plastic. Don't love that. So if you have an awkward grip, you're going to want to throw grip tape on there. Just a heads up, like, I didn't really have any issues with it. Like, it's stuck in my hand fine, but it is not going to be a top tier coating by any stretch of the imagination. But that is also just a sacrifice you're going to have to make at the $40 price point. At least this $40 price point, because to be fair, VXC and ATK do have non-zero coatings on their mice that I do not hate. So now it's time to talk about shape, and we can't do that without comparing it to a GPX. I have a pink GPX2 here and my IN-06. Starting from the front, you can see the click height here is a little bit taller on the IN-06 than it is on the GPX2, but the overall shape and silhouette is almost exactly the same on the mice, the GPX2 being a little bit 1 to 2 millimeters taller here. Looking at the sides here, the camera does exaggerate, but the GPX is a little bit longer here, 2 to 3 millimeters longer than the IN-06. But as you can see, the buttons in the GPX appear to be a little bit further forward due to that longer length, whereas the side buttons here on the IN-06 are a little bit more to the middle and accessible for someone like me who puts their thumb further back here on the mouse. But otherwise, again, look at how similar those silhouettes are. As I was comparing these mice, I was trying to look for a difference, and I couldn't really find much of a difference. The back flare here appears to be the same on both of the mice, and again, the way the hump comes up is very similar as well. From this angle, you can kind of get a good idea of the curvature as it comes from the back to the middle of these mice and how similar they are. It gives you a very flat side here for this super boring, awful potato. I mean, for this really great top tier shape that we all know and love that dominates the market because it's definitely the best mouse ever. What? Nah. All kidding aside, I do like the GPX shape because it's such an all-around shape, and Inphic does a really, really good job of emulating that shape here. Not a ton to write home about here on the side-by-side of the bottoms. I do like Inphic's backskate design better as it's thicker, but I prefer the large pad on the front of the GPX, although you're going to want to get aftermarket skates. I would say even more so on the GPX because they're so thin and not great, whereas I do actually not mind the Inphic stock skates at all. One more comparison here to give you an idea of the size of the IN-06, which is firmly a medium-sized mouse. The hump on the Scyrox V6 here is 1 millimeter taller, but if you turn these to the side, you do quickly see that the IN-06 is a much longer mouse. It has roughly 3mm on the V6, which is a pretty large amount of size and length when it comes to a mouse. It might not sound like a lot, but it really is. And this also demonstrates just how accessible those side buttons are with the height, as opposed to how they jut up more here on the Scyrox V6. This is from a size comparison, but we can also see there's pretty flat sides here on the IN-06, which is what you would expect from a GPX clone or a GPX competitor, and very strong tapering here on the Scyrox V6. You may feel much more locked in if this works for your hand, but this will be a much overall safer shape. I will note that these comfort grooves in this are also very subtle to almost non-existent like they are on the GPX, which is one thing I wish they had added to the mouse. I will say I do appreciate that this mouse is not just plain white. There are some graphics on the top, but you also may not like that if you're not a fan of supernovas, black holes, or you're just not feeling very tactic on the day. Wow, that was bad. So the software here is nothing to write home about. It's the same standard software I saw on both the Uhuru and the Ala mice that I reviewed. There's a DPI setting, a light setting for the light here on the top. I had it off. I had the 1K hertz version. You can set your LOD debounce. Mine was set to 4 milliseconds. This does randomly seem to reset in the software while you're editing it, so that was kind of a bug in their software. They do have ripple control, angle snap, and motion sync, which is nice. I never have those on. An odd caveat, when I got the mouse, you had to click to wake it up from sleep, so I switched that to move the mouse, but beside that, nothing else to write home about here on the software. Overall, I had a great experience with this mouse, and I was pleasantly surprised compared to what I had expected coming in at the $40 price point. All of the buttons are extremely satisfying to use, and the QC tolerances are also very tight for a mouse at this price, not to mention the really good stock skates that come on it, and the safe GPX shape. I will say the one thing I noticed that wasn't great about it was that even on 1K, which was the max polling rate I could achieve on this mouse, I wasn't able to have a super smooth experience in a scenario like Smoothbot. I did notice that the target was kind of jittering a bit, which I believe meant my CPU was struggling with the 1K hertz implementation on this, as opposed to like the Dario A950 Air I was using to test. That target was super smooth across the screen. It never jittered. It never caused any jumps or anything. And there were small micro stutters I could notice when using the Inphic. Overall though, using this in Fortnite, Kovacs, and Marvel Rivals, I was able to perform up to the standards I would expect with any mouse of this shape and size. So at the $40 price point, I do think this is a very solid value, a sleeper, and a mouse I wish I would have included in my GPX clone roundup that I recently did. This mouse is advertised at 60 grams and does come in at 61.5 grams stock, so a little bit more than the GPX2, which is a larger mouse. Not amazing, but not terrible for a budget mouse. You can instantly also shave off 0.4 grams by removing that little window from the bottom where the dongle stays. To give you an overall idea of size, because this was not on ELO shapes, I did have this coming in at 123mm long, 62.5mm wide, and 38.5mm tall. But as per my standard measurements, I'll also give you the narrowest grip width here at 57.4mm, and the spot where I placed my thumb on the mouse at 61.5mm, where the side tapering begins. So that about wraps up for my thoughts on the Inphic IN-06. For how well the mouse is implemented, I'm actually surprised that it doesn't cost more than $50. And if I were to do my GPX top 5 clone video again, this would actually unseat the AJ139 on the list, and it would easily compete with the M-Show's A5 as well, which is not what I thought I would be saying when I began the review process for this mouse. Thanks again for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and check out the giveaway that I'm running on Twitter at DazerZach of a Dario A950 Air and a Pulsar X3. I also recently launched a Discord server to create more discourse about mice, gaming, and peripherals. Be sure to check out the Mousecast podcast as well, and with that, we'll see ya!